The day I found her sitting at my mother's kitchen table, I couldn't tell if I was looking at a stranger or the reason my father had never really been ours. She was calm, too calm, like she'd been waiting for me. A mug of tea warmed her hands. My father's favorite mug, the one with a chipped handle that my mother refused to throw away because it still holds heat, just like memory. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and stale grief. That mix you only notice when you've been gone for a few days and come back expecting safety, only to feel the air has been breathed by someone else. I stood in the doorway with my overnight bag, still digging into my shoulder. She looked up and smiled like she had a right to. "You must be Lila," she said softly, like my name belonged in her mouth. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag until it bit into my skin. "Who are you?" I managed. She didn't jump. She didn't fumble. She didn't act like she'd been caught. She just set the mug down carefully, gently, like she was placing something delicate on a shelf. "My name is Renee," she said. I was close to your father." The silence that followed was the kind that makes you hear everything. The refrigerator hum, the old clock ticking, the faint creak of the floorboards under my feet. Close. That word fell between us like a heavy coin. I took one step forward, then another, slow like the room might tilt. The chair across from her was pulled out like someone had sat there recently. And the sink had a dish drying rack with fresh-washed plates in it. Fresh. Not mine. Not my mother's. Not the way things had been since my father died 2 weeks ago, when the whole world turned quiet and sharp at the edges. "You're in my mother's house," I said, my voice thin. "Why are you here?" Her eyes, brown, steady, held mine. "I live here now," she said. And just like that, it felt like the floor disappeared under me. Before my father died, I would have told you we were a normal family. Not perfect, but normal in the way most people mean it. Sunday dinners, worn-out couches, arguments about bills, laughter that filled the kitchen when something burned on the stove. My mother, Elaine, kept the house like it mattered. Not spotless, but loved. She was the kind of woman who folded towels with sharp corners and lined spice jars up like they were little soldiers. If you opened her pantry, you'd find labels. If you opened her heart, you'd find worry. My father, Harold, was complicated. He had the voice of a man who'd learned how to be calm to avoid conflict. Deep and slow, like every sentence was measured. He worked long hours at the county office, permits, paperwork, things that made his hands smell faintly of toner and stale coffee. As a kid, I adored him. As an adult, I learned to keep my love for him in a safer place because he had a way of disappointing you without ever raising his voice. He wasn't cruel. That's what made it harder. He wasn't loud or violent or the kind of man you warn your friends about. He was the kind of man who forgot anniversaries and made promises that slid away when life got inconvenient. Still, he was my father. And when he called me that night, his voice hoarse, breath dragging like it hurt, something in me softened. "Lila," he whispered, "I need you to come by tomorrow." I remember standing in my apartment kitchen, the fluorescent light flickering above me, a half-made sandwich on the counter. "Dad, are you okay?" I asked. There was a pause, a small cough, a swallow. I need to talk to you. About the house. The house. The word made my stomach tighten. My parents' house wasn't just property. It was my childhood. It was my mother's whole world. It was where my dad taught me how to ride a bike in the driveway, and where my mom pressed ice packs to my forehead when I was sick. "What about it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He breathed in like he was gathering courage. "Just come tomorrow," he said. "Please." But tomorrow never came. He died that night. A heart attack, the doctor said. Quick, they said. Peaceful, they said. Nothing felt peaceful. The days after were a blur of casseroles and condolences. The living room filled with people who smelled like perfume and sympathy. People who hugged too tight and asked questions in soft voices. "How's your mother holding up?" I'd look at my mother and see her sitting in her chair like she'd shrunk inside herself. Her hands in her lap, twisting a tissue until it tore. She didn't cry much in front of people. My mother wasn't the kind to fall apart on display. But at night, when the house emptied, I'd hear her in the bedroom. Not sobbing. Just breathing. That broken kind of breathing that sounds like you're trying not to make noise because you don't want the world to know you're drowning. I stayed a few nights, then went back to my apartment to handle work. I told myself she needed space, and maybe I needed distance from the heavy air of that house. We started dealing with practical things, death certificates, funeral bills, the will. My father's will. It was an ugly thing to talk about right after losing someone, but life doesn't wait for grief to finish. We sat at the dining table with a folder of papers and my mother's reading glasses, and she stared at the attorney's letter like it was written in another language. I don't understand, she kept saying. Harold would have told me. I remember seeing her hands shake as she flipped through the pages. My father had left everything to my mother. That's what the letter said. The house, the accounts, the car, everything. It should have been comforting. But my father had called me about the house the night he died. Why would he need to talk to me about it if everything was simple? That question settled in my chest like a stone. Over the next week, little things started to feel off. A missing key from the hook by the back door. A stack of mail that looked like it had been sorted through. My mother told me she'd been tired and maybe she'd misplaced things. Grief does that, I told myself. Grief makes you forget. It makes you miscount. But then she said something that made my skin prickle. Someone called the house today. She murmured one morning on the phone, her voice quiet. Who? I asked. I don't know, she said. A woman. She asked for Harold. I went still. For Dad. I repeated. Yes, my mother said. I told her he passed, and she just went quiet. Then she said, oh, I'm so sorry. And she hung up. I tried to laugh, to keep it light. Probably a coworker, I said. But my mother didn't answer right away. I didn't recognize her voice, she finally said. And she sounded familiar. Like she'd called before. A pause. Then she added, almost like she was speaking to herself, why would a woman call the house asking for him, Lila? I didn't have an answer. Not then. Not while my father's funeral flowers were still wilting in the living room. Not while my mother still slept with his sweater folded beside her pillow like it could keep her warm. I told her it was probably nothing. But when I hung up the phone, I stared at my own reflection in the dark screen of my laptop. And for the first time since my father died, a different kind of pain started creeping in. Not grief. Suspicion. 2 days later, my mother called again, her voice thinner this time. Lila, she said. Someone was here. My stomach tightened. Who is there? I asked. She hesitated. I could hear the house behind her quiet, too quiet. A woman, she said. She knocked, and when I opened the door, she looked at me like she knew me. I swallowed. What did she want? My mother's voice dropped. She asked if she could come in. She said she had something that belonged to Harold. My mouth went dry. And did you let her? I asked, even though something inside me already knew the answer. My mother exhaled, shaky. Yes, she whispered. I did. That's when I drove over. I didn't even change out of my work clothes. I grabbed my keys, my purse, and the kind of anger that comes when fear has nowhere else to go. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun was dipping low, throwing long shadows across the porch. I walked up to the front door with my heart banging like a fist. And when I stepped inside, I saw the coat hanging on the back of a chair. A woman's coat. Not my mother's. A perfume lingered in the air, something warm and sweet, like vanilla mixed with smoke. I followed the sound of voices toward the kitchen. And that's when I saw her. Renee. Sitting at my mother's table. Holding my father's mug. Like she'd always been there. I didn't sit down. I couldn't. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else, someone who hadn't walked into her childhood home and found a stranger wearing comfort like it was hers. My mother stood near the sink, her hands busy with nothing. She was drying a plate that was already dry, her eyes fixed on the towel like if she looked up, the truth would become permanent. Renee's posture was relaxed, but not careless. She sat with both feet planted, shoulders back, chin level. Not arrogant, just steady. Like she'd practiced this moment in her head and decided she wouldn't beg for space in a room she believed she'd earned. Mom, I said, my voice sharper than I meant. Can I talk to you? My mother flinched as if my tone slapped her. She glanced at Renee, then back at me. "Lila," she began. Renee stood before my mother could move. Not fast, not dramatic, just deliberate. "I can step outside," she offered. "If you'd prefer." Her politeness was almost worse than rudeness. It gave her dignity. It made her seem reasonable, and I hated that my anger didn't know where to land. "No," I said, surprising myself. "Don't step outside. Just tell me why you're here." Renee took a small breath and looked down at the mug like it was a fragile thing. "Your father and I," she paused, searching for words that wouldn't sound like a confession. "We had a relationship. For a long time." The air in the kitchen seemed to tighten. Even the clock sounded louder, as if it, too, was listening. My mother's towel stilled mid-wipe. "A relationship," I repeated, the word tasting bitter. "You mean an affair?" Renee's eyes flicked to my mother, then back to me. "Yes," she said quietly. "That's what you'd call it." My mother made a small sound, not a sob, not a gasp. More like her breath got caught on something sharp. I turned to her. "Mom, you knew." Her eyes filled, but the tears didn't fall. She looked older in that moment, like grief had finally reached her bones. "No," she whispered. "I didn't know." And her voice, it wasn't anger. It wasn't even disbelief. It was humiliation. The kind that makes you feel exposed, like your whole life has been a story someone else edited behind your back. I felt something hot rise in my chest. Then why is she sitting here? Why is she in this house? Renee's voice stayed even. "Because your father asked me to come." I laughed once, small, broken, not funny. "My father is dead. He can't ask anything." Renee's face tightened. Not at my words, at the truth of them. "He asked before he died," she said. "He made arrangements." My mother's fingers gripped the edge of the counter. "What arrangements?" Renee reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. It was thick, like it held more than a single page. She placed it on the table, sliding it forward like she was offering evidence. "This is a letter," she said. "From Harold." My mother didn't touch it. I did. My hand shook as I picked it up. The paper felt heavier than it should have. The envelope was addressed in my father's handwriting. To Elaine. To my mother. My stomach turned. I looked at my mother. "Do you want me to read it?" She stared at the envelope like it was a snake. "No," she whispered. "You read it." So I opened it. The paper inside was folded neatly, creased with care, like my father had taken time. Like he'd sat somewhere quiet, pen in hand, and thought about the words he wanted to leave behind. My father always wrote in block letters when he wanted to be understood. This was block letters. "Elaine, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to say what I needed to say." My throat tightened. I forced myself to keep going. "I have made mistakes that I can't undo, and I know this letter may not be enough, but it's what I owe you. Renee has been part of my life for years. Not a passing mistake. Not a moment of weakness. A choice I kept making." My mother made a sound then, sharp and small, like the words had pulled a thread in her chest. I kept reading, the kitchen spinning slightly at the edges. "I have carried guilt every day, but I also carried fear of losing you, fear of breaking what we built, fear of being the man you finally stopped loving." That line hit me harder than I expected. Not because it excused him, because it revealed him. Cowardly. Human. Weak. My father wasn't some villain in a movie. He was a man who wanted comfort in more than one place, and didn't have the courage to face the cost. I looked up at Renee. She wasn't crying. She wasn't triumphant. Her eyes were glossy though, like she'd read this letter before and it still stung. I looked back down. "I am asking you to let her stay in the house temporarily. She has nowhere else. I know that is an unbearable request. But I can't leave this world without trying to do right by the mess I made." My mother's knees seemed to buckle. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. I felt rage bloom behind my eyes. "Do right?" I spat, looking up. "He calls this doing right?" Renee swallowed. "He didn't want you to be blindsided." My mother let out a breath that sounded like a laugh and a cry tangled together. "Blindsided?" "Harold died and then sent a stranger to sit at my table with my mug. That's not mercy. That's cruelty." For the first time, Renee's composure cracked. Her shoulders dipped. Her voice softened. I didn't want it like this, she said. I told him not to. Don't, I snapped. Don't act like you didn't know what you were doing. You were with him for years. You knew he had a wife. Renee's eyes flashed hurt, not anger. And you think I don't know that? You think I don't carry that every day? My mother turned toward her slowly. Then why are you here? Renee's lips parted, then closed. She seemed to choose honesty over defense. Because I loved him, she said. The words fell heavy. My mother's face twisted not in rage, but in that deep, quiet pain that looks like your whole life just got relabeled. You loved him, my mother repeated, hollow. And what was I, Renee? What was I to him? What was our marriage? Renee's voice was barely a whisper. You were his home. My mother blinked hard, like she was trying not to see. I looked back at the letter, hands trembling. There was more. Elaine, I'm leaving you the house and everything else. But I have set aside a small account for Renee. Enough for her to start over. Please don't fight it. It will only bring more pain. A small account. My jaw clenched. I read the last lines, my voice low. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the humiliation, the loneliness, the anger you'll feel. I'm sorry I didn't become the man you deserved. I hope someday you find peace beyond me. Harold. I dropped the letter onto the table like it burned. My mother stared at it, her face pale, eyes distant. Renee stood there between us and the truth, hands clasped in front of her. This isn't just about staying here, I said, voice tight. This is about inheritance. About what he left you. Renee nodded slowly. I'm not here to take your mother's house. But you're here, I said. In the house. In her kitchen. Like you belong. Renee's lips trembled slightly. I'm here because he promised me I wouldn't be left out in the cold. My mother's voice suddenly sharpened, the first real edge I'd heard in weeks. And what about me, she said. What did he promise me, Renee? The room went still. Renee's gaze dropped to the table. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't over. This was just the door opening. That night, no one slept. The house, my mother's house, felt crowded with unspoken things. The walls seemed closer, the ceilings lower, like the truth had taken up physical space. Renee stayed in the guest room. My father's old study. The irony of that didn't escape me. I lay awake in my childhood bedroom, staring at the faint crack in the ceiling I used to count when I couldn't sleep as a teenager. Every sound felt amplified. The creak of floorboards. The hum of the refrigerator. The soft click of a door closing somewhere down the hall. I wondered if Renee was unpacking. I hated myself for wondering. At dawn, I heard my mother moving around the kitchen. The familiar clink of a spoon against a mug. I went to her, my body heavy with exhaustion and anger that had nowhere to go. She stood at the counter, shoulders slightly hunched, staring out the window like she was watching something leave. Mom, I said softly. She didn't turn right away. I made coffee, she said. I don't know if you want any. I poured myself a cup and sat at the table. The same table where Renee had sat the night before. I chose the chair farthest from where she'd been, as if distance could undo damage. Did you sleep? I asked. She shook her head. Not really. Silence settled between us. It wasn't comfortable silence. It was the kind that waits. Finally, she spoke. He always said he was tired, she murmured. I thought it was work. Or age. My chest tightened. I thought maybe I wasn't interesting anymore, she continued. I stopped asking questions because I didn't want the answers. She turned to me then, eyes red but dry. Is that how women lose their husbands, Lila? By trying too hard to keep the peace. I reached for her hand. No, I said. You didn't lose him. He chose. She nodded slowly, like she was trying to believe it. We heard footsteps behind us. Renee entered the kitchen quietly, already dressed, hair pulled back neatly. She paused when she saw us, hesitation flickering across her face. I can make myself scarce today, she said. If you'd like. My mother didn't look at her. You're already here, she replied. No point pretending otherwise. Renee nodded, accepting the small mercy. I'll be out most of the day, she said. I have errands. I watched her carefully. The way she spoke. The way she moved through the kitchen like she knew where things were because, apparently, she did. After she left, the house exhaled. She knows where everything is, I said quietly. My mother's jaw tightened. So did I, she said. Once. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Grief was still there, but now it shared space with something sharper. I wanted answers. Not just from my father's letter. Not from Renee's calm explanations. I wanted the truth that lived in the cracks. Over the next few days, patterns emerged. Renee came and went with an ease that didn't feel temporary. She didn't ask permission to use the laundry room. She didn't hesitate before opening drawers. She didn't overstep loudly. She overstepped comfortably. I started noticing things I wished I hadn't. A scarf hanging in the hall closet that wasn't my mother's. A photo missing from my parents' bedroom shelf. The way my mother flinched whenever Renee's name was mentioned, even in passing. One afternoon, while my mother napped, I wandered into my father's study. The room smelled like old books and faint cologne. Renee's suitcase sat near the desk, partially unpacked. I told myself I was just looking, that I wasn't invading privacy. But curiosity has a way of justifying itself. I noticed a stack of papers on the desk, neatly clipped together. Bank statements. Dates from the past 5 years. My heart began to pound. I flipped through them slowly, my fingers cold. There were transfers. Regular ones. Monthly. From an account I didn't recognize. The amounts weren't huge, but they were consistent. My father had been supporting Renee financially long before he died. This wasn't a sudden act of guilt. This was a life. I felt sick. I heard footsteps and froze. Renee stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. I wondered when you'd find those, she said softly. I straightened, anger flaring. So you knew? She nodded. He wanted transparency. Eventually. Eventually, I echoed. After my mother buried him? Renee's shoulders sagged. I didn't ask for this timing. But you accepted it, I said. She met my gaze. Yes. That honesty disarmed me more than denial would have. You're not the villain you think I want you to be, she continued. But I won't pretend I didn't benefit from his choices. I crossed my arms. And what happens now? She hesitated. I don't know. I laughed bitterly. That's convenient. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Your father was planning to tell your mother. He talked about it. For months. My chest tightened. Then why didn't he? Renee looked away. Because every time he tried, he pictured her face afterward. And he couldn't do it. Coward. The word burned in my mind. That night, I sat with my mother on the couch, the television murmuring nonsense neither of us watched. Did Dad ever talk about money? I asked casually. She frowned. Only to complain about it. I nodded. Did you know about a separate account? Her face went pale. What separate account? I took a breath and told her everything. The transfers. The duration. The intention. She listened without interrupting, her hands folded tightly in her lap. When I finished, she sat very still. So, she said slowly, he wasn't just unfaithful. He was careful. The word landed hard. Yes, I said. She nodded, eyes distant. That means there's more we don't know. The next morning, she called the attorney. I watched her sit at the table, posture straighter than it had been in weeks. Grief hadn't left her, but it had hardened into resolve. I want a full accounting, she said firmly into the phone. Every asset. Every account. Everything. When she hung up, she looked at me. I won't scream, she said. I won't humiliate myself. But I won't be naive. For the first time since my father died, I felt something like pride. Renee noticed the shift immediately. She became quieter, more cautious. And one evening, as she packed a small bag, she turned to me and said something that confirmed what I'd begun to suspect. He promised me the house would never feel hostile, she said. I stared at her. He promised you that? She nodded. Yes. My heart dropped. Because my father had promised the same house to my mother. And suddenly, it was clear. Only one of those promises could survive. The lawyer's office smelled like old carpet and peppermint tea. The kind of place where secrets go to be filed, labeled, and argued over. My mother sat beside me, hands folded neatly in her lap, her back straighter than I'd seen it in years. She wore the navy cardigan she always reached for when she needed to feel composed. Renee sat across from us, her posture careful, eyes alert, but guarded. Between us lay a thin stack of documents that carried the weight of decades. The attorney cleared his throat. Mr. Collins's estate is relatively straightforward, he said, adjusting his glasses. However, there are elements that require clarification. My mother didn't look at Renee. Such as, the attorney glanced at his notes. There is an auxiliary account that was not listed in the primary will. Funds were regularly transferred from it to Miss Parker. Renee's jaw tightened at the sound of her name spoken so clinically. And what does that mean? My mother asked. It means, the attorney replied carefully, that while the will leaves all major assets to you, Mrs. Collins, the existence of this account suggests intent to provide ongoing support to Miss Parker. Intent. That word again. And the house? I asked. The attorney looked at me. The house is legally yours, Mrs. Collins, he said to my mother. There is no provision granting residence rights to anyone else. Renee inhaled sharply. But he told me. The attorney raised a hand gently. Verbal promises, unless documented, do not hold legal weight. Silence filled the room. My mother's lips pressed together. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply nodded. So she has no right to stay, she said quietly. Legally. The word hung unspoken but understood. Renee's shoulders slumped slightly. He said I wouldn't be left with nothing. The attorney nodded. And you weren't. The account remains intact. Those funds are yours. Renee swallowed. And the house? The attorney shook his head. That belongs to Mrs. Collins. I watched Renee's face change, not in anger, but in something like grief finally losing its balance. When we stepped outside, the air felt colder. Renee stopped beside my mother. Elaine, she said softly. My mother turned, her expression composed but distant. I'm sorry, Renee said. I never wanted to hurt you. My mother studied her for a long moment. Intent doesn't erase impact, she said. But I believe you. Renee blinked, surprised. But believing you doesn't mean I'll sacrifice myself to make this easier for you, my mother continued. I've done enough sacrificing. Renee nodded slowly. I understand. She looked at me then. You were right to protect her. I didn't answer. The house felt different when we returned. Not lighter. Not healed. Just reclaimed. Renee packed quietly that evening. She didn't argue. She didn't accuse. She moved through the rooms like someone memorizing a place they wouldn't return to. My mother stayed in her bedroom. I stood in the hallway, watching Renee zip her suitcase. She paused at the doorway of my father's study, her fingers brushing the frame. He loved this room, she murmured. So did we, I replied. She nodded, a small sad smile on her lips. Before she left, she turned to me. He wasn't evil, she said. Just afraid. I know, I said. That doesn't make it easier. She hesitated. If things had been different. I shook my head gently. They weren't. She accepted that. The door closed behind her with a soft, final click. My mother came out moments later. Is she gone? She asked. Yes, I said. She exhaled, long and shaky. Then she sat down at the kitchen table and covered her face with her hands. I knelt beside her, wrapping my arms around her shoulders. I feel foolish, she whispered. Like everyone else knew something I didn't. No, I said firmly. You were loyal. That's not foolish. She leaned into me, her weight heavy and real. The weeks that followed were quiet in a new way. Not empty, but intentional. My mother rearranged furniture. She donated clothes my father no longer needed. She painted the guest room a soft, clean white. One afternoon, she handed me a small box. Found this in the garage, she said. Inside were old photos, tickets, notes my father had written her when they were young. I don't know what to do with these, she said. Keep what still feels true, I told her. Let go of the rest. She smiled faintly. We talked more in those weeks than we had in years. About her regrets. About my fears. About the ways love changes shape when trust is broken. One evening, she surprised me. I don't hate her, she said. Renee? I asked. She nodded. I hate what he did. But hating her keeps me tied to his lie. That was my mother. Even in pain, she chose clarity over bitterness. Months later, a letter arrived. From Renee. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't explain herself. She simply wrote, "I've started over. I hope you both have too. I'll carry my part of the truth with me. I hope someday it weighs less." My mother folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. "That chapter is closed," she said. I believed her. Because healing isn't forgetting. It's choosing where you stand after the truth has nowhere left to hide. The hardest part wasn't losing my father. It was learning who he had been while I was loving who I thought he was. That realization settled slowly, like dust after something heavy falls. Quiet, persistent, impossible to ignore once it's there. My mother began taking morning walks. Just around the block at first, then farther, past the bakery, past the park where she used to watch me swing when I was small. I'd see her return with color in her cheeks and a steadiness in her stride that grief hadn't allowed before. One morning, she stopped at the doorway and looked back at the house. "I spent years keeping this place exactly how he liked it," she said. "I don't know when it stopped feeling like mine." I leaned against the doorframe. "It can be yours again." She nodded slowly. "I think it already is." Inside, the house sounded different. Not silent, but alive in a gentler way. Windows open. Music playing low in the afternoons. The smell of soup simmering without the heaviness of obligation. But healing has a strange way of inviting reflection. And reflection invites questions. One evening, while sorting old paperwork in the study, I found something I hadn't expected. A journal. It was tucked behind a stack of tax folders, its spine cracked and worn. My father's handwriting filled the pages, smaller, messier than his letters. I hesitated before opening it. Some truths don't want to be known. But once you've lived through betrayal, ignorance feels like another form of vulnerability. I read slowly. Page after page of thoughts he never said out loud. Fear of aging. Fear of being unimportant. Fear of disappointing everyone if he told the truth. He wrote about my mother with tenderness and with distance. Like someone admiring something they were afraid to touch. He wrote about Renee with guilt and with gratitude. Like someone who needed softness, but didn't know how to earn it honestly. What struck me most wasn't passion. It was avoidance. My father had built his life around avoiding discomfort, even if it meant creating larger wounds down the line. I closed the journal and sat there for a long time. Understanding didn't bring relief, but it brought clarity. A few weeks later, my mother asked me something I didn't expect. "Do you think I should sell the house?" The question startled me. "You love this house," I said. She nodded. "I loved the version of myself who lived here with him. But I don't know if that's who I am now." I thought about it. About rooms holding memories that were both real and rewritten. "Then don't decide yet," I said. "Let the future tell you." She smiled. "That sounds like something you'd say." We laughed quietly. Life didn't reset. It reassembled. I returned to my apartment, but visited often. My mother started attending a book club. She laughed more easily, sometimes suddenly, like laughter had surprised her. One afternoon, she confessed something to me. "I blamed myself," she said. "For years. Even before I knew." For what? For his distance. I thought if I were different, lighter, younger, quieter, he wouldn't have drifted. I reached for her hand. "Mom, his drifting had nothing to do with your worth." She squeezed my fingers. "I know that now. But knowing something and believing it are different journeys." She wasn't wrong. On the anniversary of my father's death, we went to the cemetery together. The air was cool, the sky pale and honest. My mother stood in front of the stone for a long time without speaking. Then she said, quietly, "I forgive you." Not loudly, not dramatically, just released. I didn't know forgiveness could sound like that. She turned to me afterward, eyes clearer. "I forgive him," she said. "But I won't protect his image anymore." That mattered. Because love doesn't mean lying for someone after they're gone. That evening, back at the house, she cooked dinner and set the table with care. "Just us," she said. "No ghosts." We ate slowly, talking about ordinary things, books, weather, plans. At one point, she reached across the table and took my hand. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For standing when I couldn't. For asking questions. For not letting kindness turn into silence." My throat tightened. You would have done the same for me. She smiled. I hope I raised you too. Sometimes I think about Renee. Not with anger, with awareness. She was part of my father's story, but not mine to carry forward. Everyone carries their own consequence. Hers was starting over with truth. Ours was rebuilding with honesty. And my father's was being remembered fully, not favorably. That's the quiet justice of life. Healing didn't come in a grand moment. It came in mornings without dread, in conversations without careful omissions, in knowing that love doesn't ask you to disappear to keep it alive. And maybe that's the lesson I carry now. That secrets don't protect families. Truth does. Even when it hurts. Even when it arrives too late. Sometimes the deepest wounds don't come from strangers. They come from the people we trusted to tell us the truth. For a long time, I thought betrayal had to be loud, explosive, cruel in obvious ways. But what I learned is that betrayal can be quiet. It can wear the face of comfort. It can live in the pauses between conversations and the things never said. My father wasn't a monster. He was a man who chose ease over honesty. And in doing that, he left the people who loved him to clean up the truth after he was gone. My mother taught me something powerful through all of this. She showed me that dignity isn't about pretending you weren't hurt. It's about refusing to let someone else's mistakes decide who you become. She didn't scream. She didn't seek revenge. She didn't harden herself to survive. She chose clarity. She chose self-respect. And she chose a future that didn't require silence to stay standing. If you're listening to this and you're carrying a secret someone else left you, if you're trying to rebuild after learning your life wasn't what you thought, I want you to know this. You don't owe loyalty to a lie. You don't owe comfort to someone who benefited from your pain. And you don't have to lose your softness to protect your strength. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth and keep your heart intact. So let me ask you this. If you were in my place, if the truth arrived at your door wearing someone else's face, would you have opened it? Tell me in the comments. And if stories like this speak to your heart, stay with me. There are more truths to tell and more healing to share.